good quality succulent potting mix can get pretty pricey. And if you have a decent collection of plants, the cost can quickly add up. In my opinion, it is well worth it, and if you manage to find a really good brand, your succulents will reward you. I have a small nursery and need my plants to always look their best. As a result, I buy the best potting mix available. I also do a ton of repotting and always have loads of old succulent potting mix on hand. Because I hate wasting stuff, most of it gets reused. However, not all potting mix should be used again, and you may have to think twice where to reuse, as it can do harm to plants. For instance, I never reuse potting mix when it comes to my nursery plants. They always get brand spanking new mix. In this video, we'll have a look at pros and cons of reusing old potting soil and how it can be safely used again. Although I don't reuse potting mix for the plants I sell, it doesn't mean it's completely useless. Old potting mix can still give you great results. For instance, this big pot of succulents in my garden only has recycled potting mix. Succulents in this garden are also growing on soil mixed with old potting mix, and I think they look pretty good. Over the years, I've saved myself a decent amount of money recycling potting mix. Succulent potting mix, especially in the right amount, can make really tough clay-like soil breathable again. So saving money, improving soil structure and reducing waste would be my top pros for reusing old potting mix. Unfortunately, the cons outweigh the pros, which is why I'd never reuse old potting mix on plants in the nursery. Exhibit A: fungus. Not all fungi that sprout up in potting media are harmful, but they do degrade the potting mix. In my experience, plants in potting mix that has fungus don't grow very well. When you reuse potting mix like this, you'll be spreading the fungus and making it hard for plants to grow their best. Exhibit B: these little buggers. Meat root mealybugs. As the name suggests, these pests feed on roots. Here they're pretty obvious, but they can be difficult to spot when there's only a few. And it doesn't take long for them to spread fast. Succulent pots especially are a favorite hangout spot for root mealybugs. Because of this, you have to be really careful when reusing potting mix from a succulent. Exhibit C: moss and weeds. While these will technically not harm your plants, they can stunt their growth as they compete for water and nutrients. Some weeds can be very persistent and hard to remove. And because they are weeds, they spread fast and often leave lots of seeds in a potting mix. By reusing, you're potentially spreading prolific weeds into new pots or the garden. And finally, Exhibit D: deterioration. Most potting media will degrade over time and lose a lot of nutrients they once had. The pH can also change because of this. If you're simply reusing old potting mix as is without adding new nutrients, it may fail to nourish and support the next plant. But there is a way to add nutrients back into old potting mix and make it good once again. After making sure your old potting mix doesn't have any fungal disease, pests or weeds, you can repurpose in a few different ways. The easiest is to just mix it in with dirt in your garden. In my opinion, not a lot should be used in one spot, as potting media for succulents can be way too well draining for garden plants. You'll want a couple of handfuls for a small area like this and mix it in well. Another super easy way is to add a bit to a compost pile if you have one. I have a few buckets and sprinkle a thin layer on top when I chuck kitchen scraps in, along with chicken poop or grass clippings. Once everything is well rotted, you'll end up with a beautiful compost that can be added to the garden or used in bigger pots. If the old potting mix still looks pretty good, you can simply mix a bit with a new batch. You don't want to use too much though. I'd say the old mix should only be about a quarter of the total volume. Someone asked me in the comments of another video if they can use compost to spruce it up and add nutrients back in. I think this is not a bad idea, but can see a few things going wrong. For instance, the whole pH can change, which is likely to not be a problem for many succulents, as a lot of them tolerate almost anything. But there are some types that can get very unhappy in potting media that are not to their liking. You can amend the pH if you have a pH meter, but be aware that the cheaper ones can be very inaccurate. Succulents like their potting mix to be a bit acidic and prefer a range from 4.5 to 6.5. If you want nice looking succulents but also want to reuse, you may want to get that pH meter. If you're not too fast, you can just add well-rotted compost to the old potting mix. The compost should be around quarter of a total volume. Hardy succulents such as Crassula ovata or Graptopetalum paraguayans will grow in it just fine. I also want to stress one thing. If adding compost, it needs to be well rotted and not smell. A final note, if you have a collection with rare plants or want your succulents to look their best, it may just be better to use brand new potting mix. And if you have a favorite way of reusing, please share with us in the comments below. And that is it. I hope this video was useful, and if you'd like to learn more about succulents, hit the subscribe button or go to succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you so very much for watching.